You felt it, haven't you? That uneasy silence when you ask a question that digs just a little too deep. When you offer an idea so bold, it shakes the foundation of whatever conversation you're having. Suddenly, all eyes are on you, but not in admiration. No, what you see is something much darker. People shift uncomfortably. A few glance away, others might even laugh it off as though your insight was just a joke. But deep down, you know something's wrong. This isn't the response of a curious, engaged group. It's something more insidious. What you're sensing is fear. That's right, fear. Not jealousy as you might think. Not anger, though that sometimes shows up too. What you're witnessing is the raw discomfort of people confronted with something they can't easily grasp. Something that makes them feel vulnerable. And when people feel vulnerable, they push back, hard. Philosopher Arthur Schopenhauer, in the 19th century, called this dynamic the war on genius. He understood something crucial about human nature and society. People are afraid of what they don't understand, especially when it threatens their comfort zone. And intelligence, true, creative intelligence, does exactly that. Now, why is that? Why is it that the more intelligent, creative, or insightful you are, the more society seems to want to push you down? Why do the people around you, whether in school, at work, or even in social circles, respond with such resistance when you show even a glimmer of unconventional thought? The answer is simple, yet profound. Society doesn't want you to be smart. In fact, society thrives on your ignorance. Think about it. From the moment we enter the world, we're funneled into systems that condition us to think a certain way. Schools don't reward creativity or deep thinking. They reward conformity. You're taught to memorize facts, not question them. You're graded not on how much you understand, but on how well you regurgitate what you're told. The system wants you to obey, not to think. And that's not by accident. Schopenhauer saw this centuries ago when he wrote about how society treats those who think differently. Those who are gifted with what he called genius. To Schopenhauer, genius wasn't just about intelligence in the conventional sense. It was about the ability to see things others couldn't. To hit targets no one else could even imagine. But here's the catch. When you hit a target no one else can see, people don't cheer. They get angry. Because your success, your insight, your ability to see beyond the obvious exposes their own limitations. And nothing makes people more uncomfortable than having their limitations laid bare. It's not just individuals who feel threatened by genius, it's the entire system. Schools, corporations, media, they all have a vested interest in keeping you ignorant. Because the more you know, the more you question. The more you question, the more you start to realize that the systems you've been living under aren't designed for your success. They're designed to keep you in line. To keep you compliant, to keep you in your place. That's why society uses certain tactics to keep intelligent people in check. Schopenhauer understood this dynamic well. He saw how genius wasn't just ignored, it was actively sabotaged. If you're someone who dares to think differently, you've probably experienced these tactics firsthand, whether you realized it at the time or not. Let's break them down. The first tactic is labeling. You've probably been called arrogant, egotistical, or condescending just for offering a different perspective. Why? Because it's easier for people to label you as a problem than to admit they feel threatened by your intelligence. This tactic works incredibly well because, over time, you start to second-guess yourself. You start to wonder if maybe you are the problem. Maybe you should just keep quiet. But that's exactly what they want. They want you to silence yourself. The second tactic is gaslighting. You've likely been in situations where you're made to feel like the crazy one for seeing things others don't. You point out a flaw in the system, and suddenly everyone around you acts like you're imagining things. They'll tell you, that's just how things are, or you're overthinking it. But are you really overthinking it? Or are they simply trying to protect their fragile sense of normalcy by convincing you that you're wrong? The third tactic is exclusion. This is perhaps the most painful one because it strikes at a core human need, belonging. When you think differently, when you push the boundaries of what's considered normal, you often find yourself isolated. People stop inviting you to discussions, meetings, or social events. Why? Because your presence makes them uncomfortable. It forces them to confront their own intellectual limits. Schopenhauer wrote that society can't handle genius because it doesn't want to be reminded of its mediocrity. And when people are reminded of their mediocrity, they react with exclusion, ensuring that you, the one who sees things differently, are left out in the cold. Now you might be wondering, if society wants to keep you ignorant, if it actively sabotages those who think differently, what can you do about it? How can you fight back? Schopenhauer had a solution, a dark secret, if you will, that most people never discover. It's not about fighting the system head-on. That's a losing battle. Instead, Schopenhauer believed that the way to outsmart society's war on genius is to use the very system that oppresses you against itself. But we're not there yet. Before we dive into Schopenhauer's secret strategy for outsmarting society, we need to fully understand why this war on intelligence exists in the first place. It's not just about fear, it's about control. Society doesn't want intelligent people running the show because intelligence is unpredictable. It challenges the status quo. It questions authority. And in a world where power is concentrated in the hands of a few, the last thing those in control want is a population that thinks for itself. So how does this system profit from your ignorance? Why does it invest so much energy into keeping you in the dark? The answer lies in the way modern society is structured. Every institution you interact with, from your school to your job to the media you consume, is designed to condition you to think a certain way, to conform, to obey, to follow the rules. When you step outside those boundaries, when you begin to question the validity of those rules, you become a threat. And threats must be neutralized. But here's the thing, the very traits that make you a threat to society are also the keys to unlocking your full potential. Your ability to think critically, to see beyond the surface, to challenge conventional wisdom, these are the qualities that can set you free, but only if you know how to harness them properly. Schopenhauer didn't just identify the problem, he offered a way out. He understood that while society may try to suppress intelligence, it can never fully extinguish it. The trick is to learn how to navigate a world that's designed to keep you ignorant while holding on to your genius. But before we dive into how to do that, we need to understand the lies society feeds you to maintain control. These lies are not just harmless misconceptions. They are powerful tools that manipulate how you see yourself and your potential. Schopenhauer recognized this manipulation and saw through the veneer society uses to hide its true intentions. He identified 3 critical lies that keep intelligent, creative individuals like you in check. Once you understand these lies, you can begin to break free from their grip. The first lie society tells you is this: smart people are arrogant. You've heard this before, haven't you? Anytime you stand your ground in an argument, refuse to go along with something irrational, or simply refuse to buy into mediocrity, you're labeled as arrogant. Society is quick to brand those who stand apart as ego-driven or self-centered. But here's the truth. This label isn't about you. It's about them. Schopenhauer was blunt about this dynamic. He wrote, "Ordinary people rejoice at mediocrity." When people are confronted with brilliance, with insight, with ideas that challenge their limited worldview, they feel exposed. They feel inferior, even if they won't admit it. And instead of addressing that discomfort by challenging their own thinking, they turn on you. It's easier for society to frame intelligence as arrogance because that allows them to avoid confronting their own inadequacies. They'll accuse you of being condescending, not because you are, but because they can't tolerate feeling intellectually inferior. They're not used to someone who challenges their deeply held beliefs. So they'll do whatever they can to undermine you, using labels like arrogant to box you in, making you second-guess yourself. Don't fall for it. Their reaction is not a reflection of your character. It's a reflection of their fear. When you reject their delusions, you're not being arrogant, you're being authentic. The second lie is perhaps even more dangerous. Knowledge will set you free. We've all been told this in one form or another, haven't we? From childhood, the message is drilled into us that if we simply learn more, educate ourselves, and gain knowledge, we will somehow transcend the limitations of the world. The idea is that knowledge is the key to freedom. But here's the harsh reality. Knowledge alone is not enough to set you free. In fact, the more you know, the more dangerous you become to the system. and the more the system will try to silence you. Think about it. Every time in history when an individual or a group has gained too much knowledge that exposes the inner workings of power structures, that questions authority, that challenges the status quo, those individuals have been met with resistance, suppression, or outright violence. Why? Because knowledge disrupts control. The more you see through the lies society tells, the harder it becomes to maintain the illusion that everything is functioning as it should. Schopenhauer understood this. He knew that while knowledge is powerful, it also comes with a cost. The more you learn, the more you begin to see the cracks in the system. You start noticing that the very institutions that claim to promote freedom and progress are often the same ones that stifle innovation and suppress dissent. And once you see through the facade, society turns against you. It's no coincidence that many of history's greatest thinkers, inventors, and philosophers were persecuted or ignored during their lifetimes. Their knowledge was seen as a threat. So while knowledge is essential, don't be fooled into thinking it will automatically lead to liberation. You must be prepared for the backlash that comes with it. The third and final lie is perhaps the most pervasive. Fit in to succeed. From a young age, you're taught to conform. You're told that to get ahead in life, to be successful, to be liked, to be accepted, you need to play by society's rules. Don't stand out too much. Don't challenge authority. Just fit in. But here's the catch. Conformity is a trap. It's designed to keep you docile, compliant, and predictable. Schopenhauer called this out when he said that geniuses are instruments of truth, and truth terrifies the masses. Why does truth terrify people? Because it forces them to face reality, something most people go to great lengths to avoid. The masses live comfortably within the confines of their limited perspectives, and anything that threatens to break those boundaries is met with hostility. When you conform, you sacrifice your unique perspective, your creativity, and your potential. You trade authenticity for acceptance. But in doing so, you become complicit in your own suppression. Think about the people who have made the greatest impact on history. Were they the ones who fit in? Were they the ones who followed the rules and conformed to society's expectations? Absolutely not. They were the ones who broke free from the constraints of conformity, who dared to think differently, who had the courage to challenge the status quo. And yes, they were often vilified for it. But their refusal to fit in is what made them powerful. The truth is, society doesn't want you to succeed on your own terms. It wants you to succeed on its terms. It wants you to follow a prescribed path, to fit neatly into the boxes it has created for you. But if you conform, you lose the very thing that makes you valuable, your individuality, your unique perspective, your genius. So, what can you do? How do you navigate a world that tells you these lies and tries to suppress your intelligence at every turn? First, you must recognize these lies for what they are, tools of control. Once you see them clearly, you can begin to dismantle their influence over you. But that's just the beginning. Recognizing the lies is only the first step. To truly break free, you need to understand why you're seen as a threat. You need to grasp the psychology behind society's reaction to intelligence and creativity. Because once you understand why society views you as dangerous, you can begin to leverage that understanding to your advantage. You're not just a victim of the system. You have the potential to outsmart it. The lies, the manipulation, the suppression, they don't have to control your life. But to rise above them, you need a strategy. And that's where Schopenhauer's survival guide comes in. He understood the mechanisms of a society that despises intelligence, and more importantly, he knew how to navigate it while preserving his genius. The first step is deceptively simple. Play the fool. At first, this might seem counterintuitive. Why would someone who values intelligence want to hide it? Schopenhauer realized that overt displays of genius threaten people. When you openly challenge their worldview, they immediately put up defenses, and once those walls are up, it's nearly impossible to break through. But if you approach them from a place of apparent ignorance, by asking dumb questions or pretending not to know the answers, you disarm them. They drop their guard. And this is when you can expose the flaws in their thinking without them even realizing it. Think of it like this. If you tell someone they're wrong outright, they'll resist you. But if you ask questions that subtly lead them to the realization that they're wrong, they're more likely to accept it. This is how you turn the tables. By appearing foolish, you gain control of the conversation. People don't see you as a threat if they think you're just curious or uninformed. This tactic allows you to shine light on uncomfortable truths while maintaining the upper hand. Schopenhauer knew that playing the fool was not about diminishing your intelligence, but about using it strategically. It's a method of self-preservation in a world that seeks to undermine those who think differently. By blending in, you can gather information, observe, and ultimately influence without arousing suspicion. You can question everything without being labeled as a rebel. Remember, it's not about dimming your light, but about choosing when and how to let it shine. Next, Schopenhauer emphasized the importance of finding your tribe. Geniuses often find themselves alone. They feel misunderstood, isolated, and at odds with the world around them. While this loneliness can foster deep thinking and creativity, it can also become overwhelming. The key, according to Schopenhauer, is not to avoid isolation altogether, but to balance it with the right kind of companionship. But here's the truth. You don't need a large circle of friends to thrive. In fact, having too many shallow relationships can drain your energy and leave you feeling even more isolated. What you need are followers, people who respect and appreciate your ideas, even if they don't fully understand them. These are the individuals who will support you, not out of jealousy or fear, but out of admiration for your unique perspective. The world may not be full of people who understand your depth, but there are always those who are curious enough to listen and learn. Find these people. Build a network, however small, of individuals who value you for who you are. Schopenhauer understood that while geniuses often walk a solitary path, they don't have to walk it alone. A few loyal followers are far more valuable than a sea of indifferent acquaintances. In today's world, this tribe doesn't have to be physical. You can find your people online, in communities of like-minded individuals, in forums, or even among those who engage with your ideas through content creation. The key is to nurture relationships that energize you, rather than deplete you. The third principle in Schopenhauer's survival guide is to turn hate into fuel. If you're intelligent, if you're a creative thinker, you've likely experienced backlash. People have called you arrogant, difficult, or even dangerous. The more clearly you see the world, the more likely it is that others will try to knock you down. Schopenhauer didn't see this as a reason to back off. In fact, he saw it as a sign that you're on the right track. The system doesn't attack mediocrity, it attacks brilliance. The hatred, the criticism, the ridicule, it's all a form of recognition. The fact that people feel the need to tear you down means they see you as a threat. And threats, by nature, have power. Schopenhauer wrote, "Talent is a marksman who hits a target others cannot reach. Genius is a marksman who hits a target others cannot see." In other words, while the world is busy aiming at the same old target, you've already invented a new one. Instead of being crushed by the hatred, let it fuel you. Use it as confirmation that you're seeing things others can't. Let it remind you that you're pushing boundaries, challenging norms, and disrupting the comfort of the ordinary. Every great thinker, every revolutionary idea has been met with resistance. The difference between those who succeed and those who fade into obscurity is this. Successful individuals take that resistance and turn it into energy. They use it to keep going, to keep pushing, and to refine their ideas even further. Schopenhauer wasn't blind to the difficulties geniuses face. He acknowledged the suffering that comes with seeing the world more clearly than others. But he also believed that this suffering was not a burden. It was a source of power. The more you understand the world, the more it hurts. But that pain sharpens you. It gives you insight that others don't have, and it's through this insight that you can change the game. And that's the ultimate rebellion. The system wants you to doubt your mind, to apologize for your ideas, to feel ashamed of your intelligence, your creativity, your depth, but you don't have to play by their rules. You can break free. Schopenhauer's survival guide isn't just a set of strategies for getting by in a hostile world. It's a blueprint for thriving in it. The suffering, the loneliness, the rejection, these are not signs that you're failing. They're signs that you're on the right path. The more resistance you face, the more proof you have that you're hitting targets others can't even see. And that's where your true power lies. Society wants you to fit in, to blend into the background, to stay quiet. But your genius? It's not meant to stay quiet. It's meant to disrupt, to challenge, to break free from the constraints that hold others back. So don't apologize for your ideas. Don't second-guess your brilliance. The more clearly you see, the more you might suffer. But that suffering is what will fuel your greatness. Schopenhauer warned us, the more clearly you see, the more suffering you endure. But in that suffering lies your power. It's not a curse. It's a tool. Use it. And this leads us to the final, most important point of Schopenhauer's survival guide. Once you understand these principles, you can't unsee them. You can't go back to the way things were. You've seen through the system, through its lies and manipulations, and now it's time to take action. Section 5, Schopenhauer's Survival Guide. A person breaking chains, stepping into light, with animated text of steps. Here's how to thrive in a world that hates intelligence. Play the fool. Schopenhauer's trick to hide your intellect, e.g., ask dumb questions to expose others. Find your tribe. Geniuses need loneliness, but isolation kills. Followers' friends turn hate into fuel. Schopenhauer wrote, "Talent is a marksman, genius invents the gun. Build yours." The system wants you to doubt your mind, to apologize for your ideas. Don't. Schopenhauer's final warning. The more clearly you see, the more suffering you endure. But that suffering is your power. Smash subscribe. Turn on notifications. Next week, how to manipulate stupid people. Schopenhauer's 3 rules. But YouTube might delete it. Watch now before it's gone.